I'm Jonathan, and last week we made chicken stock, and it smelled my whole house like chicken, and it was fantastic. It made me think, you know what I would really like? How about some chicken pot pie? So that's what we're doing today. And you know what else is funny? Sometimes Mother Nature works out just the way that we like, and today was kind of a cold day here in Central Florida, got to about 77 degrees. So it's perfect weather for a chicken pot pie. I've got most of our mise en place together because we've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. So like I said, I've got everything prepped, which includes half of one gigantic Vidalia onion, which I've diced into about a medium dice, 2 small to medium sized carrots that I've just kind of chopped into a rough sort of chop, about 2 stalks of celery that I've cleaned very well, peeled and chopped into about the same size as the carrots, and 2 about the same size of my carrots parsnips, cut into the same size as well. If you've never had a parsnip, it's like carrot's sweeter brother. You're going to love it. I've got all my chicken prepped already. I've got 4 thighs here that I got that were bone in, skin on. I've taken the skin off, taken the bone out, and I've saved them for stock. Please save your bones for stock. I've cut the chicken into roughly the same size. Doesn't have to be perfect because remember, it's going to be in that beautiful pot pie sauce. And I've also got about 3 medium-sized cloves of garlic here that I've minced up really fine. I'm going to show you how to mince something else because we need to do thyme, and I've never actually shown you guys how to do a fine mince. Now, working with thyme and mincing it up is actually pretty easy, but can sometimes be a pain in the neck depending on the thyme. So, if you've got a little branch here, the leaves kind of go up, so what you want to do is grab it from the top, and use your other hand to just gently pull down the stem, and you'll get all the leaves right off, and you're left with just the stem. So I'm going to do that with the other larger piece here. Wow, this is huge. So I'm going to take that and just easily peel that off. If you go in smaller bundles, sometimes it's a little bit easier, and especially when you get to the top, it sometimes has a tendency to break as you get closer to the top of the branch. So just peel, peel, peel. And then once you've got all your thyme off the branch, it's time to get crazy with your knife. Okay, so we've got our little bundle of thyme here after it's been pulled off the branch. It may not look like much, but it's going to pack a big punch. So what you want to do in order to get this fine and edible is take your sharp knife and then pretty much keep your tip on the board, and then just using a chopping motion, just go up and down, up and down, up and down, moving through the thyme itself. And you can use your knife to scrape it as it kind of gets away from you. If you've got little bits of branches in there, it's okay, it's edible. So then just continue doing this, chop, 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 scrape, chop, 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 scrape, and you can kind of use your knife again to get everything all nice and neat, and then just keep going. And you want to continue this until basically you can't tell that it's thyme anymore. So depending on how fast you go or how fine you like it, you could be here for a long time. This is pretty much good. I've moved my chicken to a large bowl here. This way I can season it up because right now it's bland, and even though it's going to get a lot of seasoning here in a minute, it needs to be seasoned individually. So I'm going to add just a touch of olive oil, maybe a tablespoon if I had to guess, which I don't have to, so there. And then a healthy pinch of kosher salt, as always, just kind of scattered about. We'll toss it here in a second. And then, of course, my favorite, crushed black pepper. Kind of can go liberal because we're making a lot. Get all that in there, and then I'm just going to toss. So the chicken's going to be cooked first, and mostly it's just for browning. So we're going to add a little bit of olive oil to the bottom of this saucier that I have here. It's just like a medium-sized saucepan, holds 3.5 quarts. It's plenty size for what we're going to be doing today. And then I'm going to turn this up to high and let that get hot. My oil is on the brink of being super duper hot, so I need to move quick. Now what I've got, because we're just doing the chicken right now, we're going to cook it and then take it out. So we've got a pair of tongs here, and we're going to use this so we don't have to get our hands all chickeny and or possibly burnt from going into the hot oil. So, tongs. Also, a plate. A nice decorative plate. Yours doesn't have to have flowery design, but mine does, as you probably already know. And this is just going to be a landing zone for our chicken when it comes out of the hot oil. Let's get cooking because it's hot. The whole point of this step is to get the chicken browned on 2 sides and then take it out as soon as that has been accomplished. So, working in batches. You want to work in batches because if you use too much chicken at once,
Your oil temperature is going to drop too low, and you are not going to get browning, you're going to get stewing, and that's not what we want because stewing is not as delicious as browning. So, I can probably get another 2 pieces in this batch. As you can see, my chicken is relatively the same size. So there, I've got, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 pieces in there. That's about as much as I want to go. After about maybe a minute, 2 minutes after it's been browned on this side, I'm going to flip it, take it out, and start the process all over until all of my chicken is brown on both sides. Obviously there's a lot of popping going on. It's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and flip. As you can see, I got some really nice color on this chicken. Oh, that one looks beautiful. I love it. Oh, I love it. I'm so hungry. Oh, it's loud. Flip this and continue your batches.
With all my chicken brown and looking super delicious, it's time to get into the less splattery part of the program, and we're going to start to cook down the aromatic vegetables, and this is going to be the easy part. So come a little closer and we'll get in the pan with our vegetables. So in the bottom of my pan, I've let it rest for just a couple of seconds to let the oil kind of come down to a regular temperature. You can see all this brown gook. That's delicious chicken goodness, so don't do anything with that. First thing that's going to go in is the carrots, and I've also turned my heat down to a medium. The carrots take the longest to cook, so those are going to go in for a quick second. And give it a stir. Very nice, very nice. And after about, I don't know, maybe about a minute at this temperature, I'm going to add the onions, and it's going to really start to smell delicious. With my carrots in there for just about a minute, they're starting to look a little softer anyway, a little lighter in color, which is very nice. I'm going to add the parsnips now. And like I said before, if you've never had parsnips, I love them. I didn't have them until about a year ago, and they might be one of my new favorite vegetables. They're a little bit sweeter than carrots. They're a little similar in texture though, so they're a little rough. They're going to need to be cooked for just another about minute with the carrots, and then we're going to add the onions and some salt. After about another minute, the parsnips are looking a little soft, the carrots a little bit softer. Time for the onions. I like to go a little bit heavy on the onions, mostly because they are super aromatic, so I'm just going to dump the whole thing in there. There we go. I'm going to stir that around, and then I'm going to add the celery. Once this is moisturized with the oil. Very nice. A little bit of celery action. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and add some salt. The salt's going to draw out some moisture, and it's also going to increase the flavor quotient of the whole dish. We're going to be adding more later, so you don't have to be too shy right now, but you definitely don't want to go overboard. Wait till the last couple of minutes of total cooking before you start flavoring it like crazy. Okay, I just added the onions, celery, and the salt. I've got my heat set on a straight medium. We're just going to be sweating out the vegetables here, and what that means is just getting the moisture out. You don't want too much browning. If you have some, that's perfectly okay. Your house is going to smell amazing, and once everything starts looking kind of soft, then we'll move on to the next phase. Okay, this final mixture has been going for a couple minutes now. It smells so good. I love the smell of celery and onions, but it's time to add the garlic, and this is really going to kick up the smell quotient. So I've got a little handful here. That's a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit more. It's going to taste really good. Now the garlic doesn't take very long to cook. So once I get my hand cleaned off, because it's stuck to my hand. Get off! I'm going to go ahead and stir it in. And this will only really need to cook for about 30 seconds. You're going to know immediately when it's time to go to the next step, because it's going to start to smell so good. Okay, literally 30 seconds later, the garlic smells very garlicky and fragrant. I'm going to dump in the thyme. And it's going to be another 30 seconds after you stir it in. You don't want to cook the thyme too much, but you do want to give it the heat to open up a lot of the aromatic flavors. And then when we're done with this, it's time to add the flour. Once it starts to smell like Thanksgiving, you'll know you're about ready. So, it's time to dump in the flour just like we're making a sauce. So I've got a little spoon here of flour, just going to kind of try to nicely dump it around. Kind of clumps around, that's fine. So, like I've said before, it's better to make it too thick than not thick enough, because we can always thin it out with some extra stock or some water, but it's pretty difficult to make it thicker. So once I've got the flour in, I'm going to just stir, and I'm hoping that I've added too much flour,
because, like I said, it will be easier. So it should start to clump a little bit like it is. Everything looks well coated with flour.
So once the flour looks really pasty and kind of everything coming together, you can tell the oil has absorbed the flour is sticking to the vegetables. It's time to add the stock. Now, obviously, from last week, I've made my own stock, and it's really, really good. I recommend that you use your own homemade stock, but if you don't have that, feel free to use this stuff from the can. That's fine. Actually, I prefer the carton, but make sure you go for the low sodium version. If you use the regular type, it's going to make your dish very salty and not taste as good as it probably could.
1 quart of chicken stock coming right up. Whew. Mine was still kind of frozen. That's okay. It'll obviously melt. And I've switched to a whisk. I'm just going to kind of whisk that in. And I'm going to turn the heat up to high because we want the starch to dissolve and start to gelatinize and thicken up the sauce here. And then while that's going, we have dough to deal with. And don't think for a second that I forgot about the chicken. It's going right in, right from the plate. And any accumulated juices that you've got in there, dump it all in because it's going to taste like chicken and it's going to taste delicious. So there.
Now today we're going to be using store-bought puff pastry, which I have absolutely no problem with because it's fantastic and it's going to taste great. It needs a little bit of work, and this is a Tasty Techniques first. We're working with dough. Now granted we're not making it, but that's fine. It takes a little bit of rolling out, which we're going to do. So I'm going to bring you over to my board and we're going to get started. Now we're going to be using the countertop. I've got mine meticulously clean and antibacterialized just to make sure everything is safe. I've also preheated the oven to 400 degrees because that's going to be our baking temperature. So what we need to do is put down a light layer of flour first, and very, very light. The puff pastry, I've had it out of the freezer for probably about a half hour just to soften up a little bit so we can use it. So just get your hand in there, lightly dust this around. That's fine. You don't want too much because then your dough can be kind of floury and that doesn't taste very good. So with that, just like that, you're going to take the puff pastry piece, which I have right here, and I'm going to place it right in the middle there. Now, this is where things can get a little tricky, but it's not hard. Here we've got the seams where this was folded in threes, so just get your fingers in here and just crimp very lightly to bring this seam together. Okay, so that looks good. You want to work quick. You don't want this to get too warm. So that seam, and then right over here to the next seam. Okay. Here on Tasty Techniques, I don't pretend like I have all the best equipment. And this is one of those instances. I'm going to now get out my rolling pin, which is an empty wine bottle. Don't judge me. I was thirsty. So I'm going to lightly flour my bottle as well. Just a little bit of flour here. And this is going to make sure it doesn't stick too bad to the dough. Alright. So then very lightly I'm going to put the bottle, or rolling pin, right on the dough, and very lightly just kind of go back and forth a little bit. If you get a little flour in here, that's fine. We can just kind of brush this around. So very lightly. You're not really looking to make it too much bigger, just making the seam one homogeneous piece. Whoop. If that happens, that's okay. Just very lightly and carefully take it off of the rolling pin, fix it up, and you might need just a little bit more flour on your pin. I'm going to flip it over just to make sure the other side is good too, being very careful. Alright, the other side could use a little bit of help too, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got this little souffle / casserole dish. I actually haven't used it yet, so this will be a nice first application. I'm going to place it right in the middle of my dough just to get an idea. Now, this does me no good. I have way too much dough. So I'm going to grab my knife and cut around the edge a little bit further out from where the actual dish is. I've got a sharp knife here. The sharper the better because you don't want to crush the layers of butter and dough too badly. Now I'm not doing this on my cutting board, I know, shame on me, but I'm just going to be very, very careful and not press down too hard because I don't want to damage my nice countertops. So I'm going to carefully just go around the edge here
And you do want to go extra outside from where your dish is because the dough is going to shrink a little bit in the oven. So with that done, I'm going to take my dish, set it aside, and very carefully I'm going to take off the ring that I made and put it on my cutting board, and we're going to deal with it here just in a second. Now, while I'm waiting for everything to come together in the last final stages, I've put together in here 1 egg, lightly beaten, with probably about a tablespoon or so of water just to thin it out. This is our egg wash, and not only is it going to be used as a glue to keep our dough with the casserole dish, it's also going to be used on top of the dough to give it a really nice shine. It's going to look beautiful. But don't need this right now. I'm going to place it off to the side.
Alright, my dough is rolled out, my oven's set, my pot pie tastes really great. Taste it as often as you need to. I tasted it about 3 times, and each one of those times I added something different. The first time I added salt and some pepper. The second time, more salt and a ton more pepper. And the third time I was like, you know what? Needs some acid. So I added some lemon juice, and it really helped brighten everything up, and it's really, really good. So this is going to be coming together right now, and I'm really excited. Let's get it.
Now very carefully, you want to take your mixture and pour it into your dish. And again, this is nuclear, so be very, very careful. Now, you can come close to the top, don't come all the way up, because there will be some expansion, and you don't want a big mess. So, that's pretty good. Alright, and now we've got to get the dough ready. Now, like I said before, the egg wash here can act sort of like a glue. So we need the dough to stick to the pan here. So I'm going to take a little bit of the wash with my brush and just lightly apply to the bottom here. I'm going to get underneath it, and if you get some egg on your hand, it's okay, just wash your hands. Alright, and then very carefully just place right on top and try to pull it taut. Again, if it's not perfect, it's quite okay. A little bit of crimping. So all that's there. Now this isn't going to look very good as it is, so we're going to add the egg wash to the top of this to make it look great, because it's going to brown and it's going to look fantastic and it looks amazing. Now I'm going to put this on a sheet pan and then put it in my 400-degree oven. How long? Until it's done. When will it be done? When it's nice and puffy.
Okay, it's been about 14 minutes, and it's time to come out of the oven. I've turned the heat off, and now I'm going to don some protection, and let's come out of the oven. I've switched hands to get a better grip here, and oh man, this smells good. Oh, look at that. She's a beauty! My whole house smells like stinking chicken pot pie, and I'm not complaining, it's fantastic. But, tempted though you might be, you have to let this rest for at least 5 minutes. If you don't, you will burn your mouth. It is going to stay plenty hot, trust me. So I'm going to let this rest for another minute or two. I'm going to crack into it. I can't wait.
Oh.
Okay, so thanks for stopping by for another Tasty Techniques. I hope you learned something today. I had a lot of fun cooking this, and I hope you can do it too. It doesn't seem like something that you might want to do every day on a regular weekday, but for a Saturday or Sunday night meal, home-cooked chicken pot pie, whew, you really can't beat it. But again, I'm Jonathan. Thanks for stopping by. Check back next week for new Tasty Techniques. Follow me on Twitter and check out my blog, and I'll see you next week.